Good evening, everyone. John here from Big Pants Underground. I apologize in advance. This is going to be a bit of a longer video than most of mine because I'm going to talk about something that I'm rather pissed about, and you too should be pissed about in case you don't know or you've been listening to the media. But anyway, today we're going to talk about the Ohio train derailment and all the bullshit that the government is shoving up everyone's asses. So if you don't know about it, I'm sure you do, because suddenly it's news. But it wasn't on the day that the crash happened, which was February 3rd, 2 weeks ago, basically. A little over 2 weeks ago. A little town called East Lebanon, Ohio, which is in Polk County, Ohio, on the border of Ohio and Illinois, or close to the border. A train derailed. This train was carrying many, many toxic chemicals, including vinyl chloride, which is used to make PVC pipes, and also something called butyl acrylate, which is basically used to make plastics. It makes a lot of things, but it's mostly used to make plastics. Anyway, the tanks on this train, ruptured and spewed both these chemicals out all over the ground. And then it caught on fire. I believe it was about 9, well, maybe it was 5, between 5 and 9 cars that were carrying these chemicals did not rupture. And the government's bright idea was to go ahead and bust them open so that the chemicals would burn off. Now, any fifth grader can tell you that you're not supposed to burn chemicals. I can tell you, and I'm not a scientist, I'm not a chemical engineer, but I can tell you that burning chemicals is bad. Now, butyl acrylate is highly flammable. And there are several ways to fight it. It's not easy to fight. We'll take a look here. Butyl acrylate. This is from Cameo Chemicals. They're obviously the people that make this. It has a high flammability. It has a high health risk, can cause serious or permanent injury. And readily undergoes violent chemical changes at elevated temperatures and pressures. So it changes its chemical structure when it's burned. They do not tell you what it changes into when it's burned, but if you can see here, the vapor, which obviously when you burn something it vaporizes, is irritating when breathed at high concentrations. Contact with liquid causes irritation of skin and burning of eyes. Now that's going to be important in a few minutes, because I'm going to tell you what some of these people that live in and around this town are going through. And by the way, the government has told them that it's perfectly safe to go back home. It's perfectly safe to drink the water. But then they say, you should buy bottled water. It's perfectly safe to shower or bathe. Send the kids back to school, even though the school is right next to a creek that has been affected by this spill, and all these chemicals spilled into this creek. The school smells bad. The kids are throwing up. They don't want to eat. There's just a nasty stench, chemically type stench in the air of the school. And all over town, the residents say that you can feel it in your nose, in your mouth, It's just like a nasty, smelly thing, and after a few minutes of exposure, you get a metallic taste in your mouth. That's bad. That's not good. But the EPA has come in and tested the air and say, oh, it's safe. It's not safe. It's not. And I'll tell you why. The other chemical was called vinyl chloride. It's used in the making of PVC pipes. It's polyvinyl chloride. That's what PVC stands for. And you probably have some right in your home, under your sink or in your bathroom. It's what 99% of houses in the U.S. use for plumbing. So hopefully the polyvinyl chloride is safe. But the chemical that makes it is not. Let's look here. How toxic is it? Vinyl chloride can irritate the eyes, mucous membranes, and respiratory tract. Escaping compressed gas or liquid can cause frostbite or irritation of the skin and eyes. Now, frostbite because it's kept at lower temperatures. Chronic exposure can cause permanent liver injury and liver cancer, neurologic or behavioral symptoms, and changes to the skin and bones of the hand. Now, what happens when you burn polyvinyl or vinyl chloride? When it burns, it releases hazardous chemicals such as phosgene and hydrogen chloride into the air. Phosgene is a colorless gas with a pungent odor that can cause vomiting and breathing difficulties, and was once used as a weapon in World War I. They allowed it to burn. They didn't put the fire out. You can put the fire out. You can stop the fire, the butyl acrylate fire. It's not easy, but there are ways to do it by using foams. So, apart from the fire that started during the train wreck, they had, like I said, between 5 and 9 other tank cars that hadn't ruptured. They were afraid they were going to explode, so instead of trying to isolate them from the fire, they ruptured these tank cars and allowed this stuff to roll into the fire and catch on fire itself. You can't make this up, okay? You just can't make that up. So when you burn it, it creates these phosgene, and it creates hydrogen chloride. And like I said, phosgene was used as a weapon in World War I. It's basically mustard gas, okay? Now, hydrogen chloride is a compound, has the chemical formula HCl. It's a colorless gas, can irritate the skin, nose, eyes, throat, and larynx. Exposure to liquid hydrogen chloride may cause frostbite. We already saw that. Workers may be harmed from exposure to hydrogen chloride. The level of harm depends upon the dose, duration, and work being done. Ingested concentrated hydrogen chloride. Okay. Ingested concentrated hydrochloric acid, which hydrogen chloride can change into when it comes into contact with water, can cause severe corrosive injuries to the mouth, throat, esophagus, and stomach with bleeding, perforation, scarring, or stricture formation as potential sequelae. I don't know what sequelae means. I guess it's like a sequel to your ingestion of hydrochloric acid. So once hydrogen chloride comes in contact with water, which is in the soil, it's in the air, it changes into hydrochloric acid. And if you've ever taken any kind of chemistry or science class in school, you know that hydrochloric acid is bad, corrosive, and yeah, it could kill you if you drink it. Which they are. That's what the residents are drinking. Because when the train crashed and these cars ruptured, this stuff seeped into the earth. Even the part that was burning, even forget about the part that was burning. There was some of it that wasn't burning. And it seeped into the earth. And the burning on the surface of the earth did not affect the chemicals that had seeped into the earth. It only affected the chemicals that were on top of the soil. The fire didn't reach under. Heat rises. And what was the government's bright idea? To bust the rest of the tank cars and let that shit roll out and catch on fire. Well, when it rolled out, before it caught on fire, it seeped into the earth. What's in the earth? Water. That's where our drinking water comes from. If you have a well, or if you have public water or town water, they still get it from the water table that's under the ground. Makes sense to me. Doesn't make sense to our government. So let's talk about the residents now. Okay, here you go. This is what it looked like. This was days after the wreck, by the way. This was the burning. This is what the cloud looked like. Look at that cloud, okay? That's not right. Anybody can look at that cloud and say, hey, that's not right. Here's another version of it. Look at that thing. Look at that. Look at that. Looks like a freaking volcano went off. Pitch black, oily smoke. Just, and then we have a picture from space. Look at the size of it. That is huge. Something that big, you're looking at it from space. That's miles. Hundreds of miles across. Hundreds of miles. Not just miles. So let's talk now. We're going to talk about the residents of the town. Okay? Many of them want to leave, but they can't. They don't have enough money. It's not easy to leave your home if you have nowhere to go and you don't have any money. This is a very small town in Ohio. A lot of its residents are probably poor. But the Environmental Protection Agency is telling them, of course, that all families need to know that they are safe. Bullshit. Now, they are offering some people pay for relocation over her safety fears, but not all. Only people that live in a certain range to the actual derailment. They're angry. They don't know who to be angry with. The air is fine. This is what they're telling them. The air is fine, but don't go outside. The air from outside is inside. It's all the same air. Where do you think the air that's in your house comes from? It doesn't come from space. It doesn't come from underground. It comes from outside. Your water is fine, but drink bottled water. Well, if the water's fine, why do I have to drink bottled water? You can see here a picture where they've dammed off parts of this creek. And they're using these pumps with some kind of filter on the end, like a cloth filter, to suck up the chemicals from the water because it floats on top of the water. So here you see 50 out of 141 cars on the train derailed and exploded. 2 days later, they feared a major explosion and conducted a controlled burn of vinyl chloride as a preventative measure. They just burned it. They set it on fire. They busted the tanks and let it catch fire. Instead of trying to isolate. These 2 days. They had 2 days. They could have gotten cranes. They could have gotten bulldozers. They could have gotten anything. Picked up those cars, or those train cars, and moved them out of the way so they wouldn't catch on fire. But no, their brilliant idea was to rupture them. Just rupture them and let it catch fire. Residents have described breathing in these chemicals as a smell like turpentine or bleach, sticks to your nose. Breathing in for a few minutes will leave a metallic taste in your mouth, like sucking on pennies. They reported dead pets, dead foxes, The birds that they feed, the outdoor cats that they feed have completely disappeared. They're gone. They're gone. And it's not like they left the area. No, they huddled in a corner somewhere and died. The birds are dead. The foxes are dead. Their dogs are dying. But it's safe. It's safe to drink the water. It's safe to breathe the air. Dogs are just dogs, you know, they're not like humans. They're not mammals. They don't breathe air. They don't drink water. You know, they're something else. They're aliens. Dead fish have been found in the local waterways. It's killing the fish. A chemical sheen coats parts of the creeks that run through the town. There is a video somewhere out there of the mayor of this town throwing a rock or something he threw into the river or the creek. And you know how when there's oil floating in water, you have that kind of like rainbowy sheen? He threw it in the creek and it did that. And you could just see this clean bubble of water like spreading out the oily, sheeny, chemically shit. So it's all in the water. If it's in the surface water, then it's in the underground water. It's in the water supply. Yeah, they're sucking it out with pumps. This lady here fears for her husband and children. They've developed rashes after bathing. Well, what was one of the side effects of these things when you get it on you? Skin burns, chemical burns, hydrochloric acid, burning skin, burning eyes. They're getting rashes, and they're going to the local physicians, and the physicians are telling them that they have eczema. Right here. They're going to the physicians for diagnosis, and they're told that they have eczema and sinus infections. So a whole town of people suddenly gets eczema. A whole town. All of a sudden. Just out of the blue. But if imagine what it's doing to your skin. Imagine what it's doing to your throat and your stomach and your intestine. The lining of your intestine. And it's killing off all the bacteria, all the good bacteria that lives in your intestine that you need to help you digest food. Like I said, they went back to school, and the custodians have already gone through the school and cleaned and disinfected everything. But the school, there's still a chemical smell in there. They're stressed and worried. I would be too, because they have to go to school. EPA website states it's tested air in nearly 500 homes. However, the contractors that tested the air were hired by Norfolk Southern, which was the train operator. They've highlighted, Norfolk Southern highlighted that they've spent more than $1.5 million on resident assistance. They're offering each resident $1,000. $1,000. This is what we're giving you to help you relocate. $1,000. In most places, or probably all over, $1,000 won't even cover your first month's rent or your security deposit. And most people want first and last month's rent and a security deposit before you can even think about moving in. So they're giving them $1,000. They reported $3.2 billion in profits last year. But all they can afford is $1,000. And a lot of people are saying, a lot of people are comparing this to Pearl Harbor, Chernobyl. They're saying this is America's Chernobyl. Because that cloud, it didn't just stay over Ohio. The winds blew it east. I live east of Ohio. I could be breathing in that crap right now. New York could be breathing in that crap right now. Pennsylvania, They're breathing it in. It's in the air. It doesn't matter that they say minimal exposure will not give you long-term side effects. How do they know? Really? It gave rats long-term side effects. Absolutely 100% it did. So these people are not getting the answers that they need. All they're getting is bullshit from the government. Here's an article from the BBC, but talking about a man that owns a successful garbage truck business, and his business happens to be located right next to the train wreck. Most of his customers are canceling their service. They're leaving. And he's going to have to shut down his business because he's afraid to go to work. He's not sleeping. Everything smells like chemicals. You can see right here, it was 5 cars. After the derailment, emergency crews performed a controlled release of vinyl chloride from 5 rail cars that were at risk of exploding. 2 days after the derailment. Not hours. 2 days. They had 2 days to move those cars, but they didn't. So they're saying, yeah, their lives are measured by what happened before the disaster and what took place after. Now, I know that I've droned on in this, but I've given you all the facts that I can look up. And I want to take a look here at USA Today, because they're saying they want you to know what's true and what's false. They're saying that everything that's out there on social media, posts were built on speculation, assumptions, or outright falsehoods, accumulated thousands of shares and millions of views. I hope I get millions of views. I really do. Because people need to know. They need to know. Like I said, I'm not a scientist. I love science. I read science. I study science, but I'm not a scientist. I don't have a degree. Look at that. Look at that. Look. Look at that plume of smoke. But I've given you facts that I've looked up. Okay? I've looked up these facts and I've shown them to you. These people are saying here on USA Today that they're just towing the line and giving you shit that the government is saying. They say the Ohio River has been contaminated through Little Beaver Creek, which runs through the town. Okay? But it's fine. It's fine. There's just a little bit in the water. Just a little bit. They say that the air is breathable. It's fine. There's just a little bit of skin irritation and some breathing difficulties. It's no big deal. Go back to work. Go back to your home. Don't worry about things. Oh, I did forget to tell you something about butyl acrylate. It's heavier than air. So, it doesn't float up into the atmosphere. Okay? Unless it's burned. Go figure. When it hasn't been burned, when it's released, it's heavier than air, so it floats near the ground where we live. It accumulates in basements, in sewers, anything low, like around like a valley or a hill, it'll sink and stay there. It won't be affected by the wind very much because it's not at high altitude. So these people could have, deadly basements. They walk into their basements, they could suffocate. But USA Today is just, it's fine. Don't think about anything that social media is telling you. We're the ones that are trying to give you the facts. We're the ones that have the capacity to think about crap like this and want people to know, because they're not safe. They held a town meeting. They held a town meeting to figure out what to do. They told Norfolk Southern that they were doing this. They wanted them to come to address their concerns. Norfolk Southern didn't show up. They didn't even bother to show up for the meeting. In a town where they just had a derailment. Forget about the chemical spill. If there wasn't even a chemical spill, just a normal derailment They should be there. And the town has a meeting to say, what the hell are we going to do about this? You know, it's wrecked things. They would show up for the meeting, but they didn't. These people's property values are gone. Even if they want to move, if they want to sell their houses, it's impossible. Impossible. No one's going to buy their house. There's just no way. I wouldn't come anywhere near that place. So the government, this is the government. This is the people that are supposed to be protecting you. They're supposed to be dealing with this stuff. And the best thing that they could come up with, all these scientific minds, all these scientists, all these people from the EPA that have hired, all these government contractors, their best idea was to let it burn. Let it burn. Let it go up into the air. If it causes cancer in 10 years, hey, that's 10 years from now. I'll tell you a little story. This video is getting long in the tooth, so I'll end it soon. But I want to tell you a little story. I was in the Navy. Served on a nuclear-powered submarine, which I'm incredibly proud of. Don't get me wrong. I'm incredibly proud of myself for doing that, and I don't regret it one single bit. My compartment on the sub was literally right up against the reactor room, okay? So where I worked, I was constantly being bombarded by radiation. We all wore these little things on our belts that was supposed to track our radiation exposure. And they read them once a month. And somehow, during my first 3 months on the submarine, I accumulated, I can't even remember, something like 11, something 11. I can't remember what you measure it in even. It's been so long. But I never, for months after that, for the rest of the time that I stayed in the Navy, I was on that submarine the entire time I was in the Navy, except for boot camp and sub school. But my radiation exposure never changed from the first 3 months. I don't know if it was like that for everybody that was on the submarine, but somehow in the first 3 months, I got all the radiation that I was going to get for the rest of the time. And I wore the belt off, you know. I wore my belt, I wore my uniform when I was off the sub. And you're exposed to daily doses of radiation from the sun, from space, from, you know, walking past a clock with radium dials, with radium paint on the dial. But somehow my radiation exposure never changed. I was 46. When I was 46, I was diagnosed with kidney cancer. I came within about 4 days of dying. Luckily, they found it. They diagnosed it. They took out my kidney and everything around it. It came back one time 2 years later on my adrenal gland. Your adrenal gland sits on top of your kidney. They couldn't get to that. They tried to. They botched the surgery, which caused me to spend 2 months in the hospital. Nearly dead with a sepsis, with a septic infection. And they ended up having to do radiation treatment, go figure, to kill the cancer that was on that adrenal gland. Basically, the adrenal gland no longer functioned. It had turned itself into a tumor. So they shot it with the radiation. Boom, it's gone. And I haven't been bothered by it since, you know. Thank God. But I thought, okay, well, I was on a nuclear submarine. I worked near the reactor. Even if I didn't work near the reactor, anywhere on that sub, you were still getting exposed to rays, you know, from radiation from the reactor. So I went to the VA and I said, hey, you know, maybe I can get some compensation from this. I can't go back to work for a while. I've got this giant scar on my stomach. My stomach hurts. It's altered my physical appearance. It's altered my life. Went to the VA. And they told me, well, here we have this list here. Let's show you this list. This is what the Navy acknowledges causes cancer. And these are the cancers that they acknowledge get caused by this list of things. Kidney cancer was not on there. They had leukemia, they had thyroid cancer, they had brain cancer, they had liver cancer, but not kidney cancer. So that's the government for you. I didn't get any help. Served in the Navy 4 years, volunteered to be on submarines, I was in wars. I got shot at, I got depth charged. But no, you got kidney cancer, kid. You have to deal with it yourself. So that's the government for you. That's how much they care. And that's what they're doing to these people. And it really needs to be said. It really needs to be shown. These people need to know. FEMA hasn't even, they've asked the government for help, and the government hasn't even sent in FEMA. They haven't bothered. They haven't sent them in. Why should they? It's safe to drink the water. It's safe to go outside. But it's not safe to go outside. Stay in your homes. Drink the water, but don't drink the water. Buy bottled water. All right, this video has been really, really long. I'm going to end it. So just take what I've said to heart. Know that what they've done is not the right thing to do. It's just not possible. Anybody can realize that it's not the right thing to do. Anybody can. And yeah. Have a nice day, and hope this doesn't happen anywhere near you. And if you have the means, if you can, try to help some of these people. Donate to whatever you need to. I don't know if the Red Cross is in there. I don't know. It's not in any of these articles. They're trying to hide as much as they can from everybody, including the people that live there. They're trying to hide it. But if you can, yeah, donate to the Red Cross. Donate to agencies. Or call someone in East Palestine, Ohio, and ask if there's anything you could do to help. I hope you liked this video. If you did, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Ring the bell for notifications. Let me know what you think down in the comments. And we'll do something about entertainment next time. But I'll talk to you later.